Welcome back everyone to my channel here, Abe talking. Today I want to bring to you guys a character artist, a friend I did here in Canada, one of the first Canadians I had a pleasure to know, one of the first Canadians I had a chance to know here, and coincidence or not, he was a friend I did back then. It was when I was starting to work in Canada. The first studio I had a pleasure to work here at Rock Digital. Jeff was that guy, nice person. His excitement and his energy is something really particular in a Canadian person, I would say. So yeah, he has already like more than 18 years of experience to work in the entertainment industry. He started actually as a generalist, and over the time he became a 3D character artist. And today I want to bring him to tell you or telling us a little bit about his story, his background, his history, and the challenge that he had a chance to overcome. A great story for this moment, like a true story, some real examples of how you can overcome actually some challenging times as we are living nowadays. So I think this podcast was really great. I had a chance to talk with him over so many great like subject, and I want all of you to have a chance to listen to that and to learn from that. And if you guys feel that you have doubts and questions, just make comments here. And of course, if you like the interview, please also hit the like button. Okay, so paying attention on that. So let's say welcome to Jeff Rusakis. No problem. So yeah, we are here with my friend Jeff, a guy that the first Canadian actually I had the honor to meet here in Canada. I have a couple of friends in Brazil, Brazilian friends here, but one of the first one was for sure Jeff, this guy that I for so long we should have this talk before, but like the life is just life, and now we had this chance, and I will be glad to share his story with you guys on the channel here. And yeah, this is Jeff. I will let him introduce himself, and yeah, welcome.
Thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it. My name is Jeff Rusakis. I've been a character artist for a long time. Oh man, I got started doing 3D, making mods for like Battlefield 2. So that's
Oh,
how I got
seriously?
started. Yeah, it was a
And
long
and
time ago.
and Battlefield was already EA back then?
Yes, yeah.
Oh.
I think it was made by Battlefield 2 was Dice, I believe. I don't think it was Digital Illusions then,
Yeah,
but
yes, it was Dice.
yeah,
Because it changes so much, like who actually is doing. Today are actually four studios working on that thing.
yeah, it's massive now. But I was working on a mod called Project Reality, which, in my experience, it actually extended the life of Battlefield 2 because Battlefield 2 was a great game. Don't get me wrong, but Project Reality was a mod, like a full conversion mod that made it a little bit more realistic, focused a lot on balancing teamwork and realism and stuff like that. And there's a little more mil sim, like military simulator. Anyway, I had, and then I went to school and
Where actually
I,
you started, you studied, like the college was VFS or one of those schools in Vancouver or not?
no, it was in Ontario. It was the very first year that Fanshawe College actually had a 3D character art and animation or something like that kind of course. And
Okay.
I took that and I did well. Like I already had some experience doing some
Hmm.
3D modeling. So it was learning a little bit more about animation and rigging and that kind of stuff.
So this was,
And
if you don't mind, which year was that?
oh yeah, that was 2009.
2009. Okay, so
Yeah.
yeah, you started 2 years earlier than me actually. I started only on 2010, but actually work in the industry 2011. So
Mhm.
you have great time in advance.
Yeah. And so when I finished school, it was in Ontario, which
Okay.
if if you're listening to this podcast and you don't know where Ontario is, it's east. I live in BC right now, which is west coast of Canada.
West Coast, yeah.
And Ontario is where I was living, was pretty close to Toronto and like New York, if you're maybe in the United States. So in that area, I had already like lived in Toronto. I'd already been to Montreal, which are a couple other video game cities. And I was like, you know what? Like, I have never been to Vancouver, and it's a video game city. So I put my computer in some boxes and I put my clothes in some luggage, and I actually just came out here with my computer and my clothes.
Only by yourself?
By myself, yeah.
By yourself.
Okay. By myself, yeah. And I've got some crazy stories along the way, but you know,
it was hard for you to leave your family. Just, hey man, I'm just mom, daddy. I'm going to Vancouver. How was challenge for you?
In some ways, but I was really ready. Like, I have an identical twin, and I have a younger brother.
Oh, seriously? I didn't know that. Like,
yeah, oh yeah, there's another me walking around. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. This happened.
Yeah.
Do you know the story that I was just walking on the Toy Traders? Do you know Toy Traders, right? Like Langley?
Yeah.
The store. I was just walking there and see some statues, and out of something, like I saw Terrence. And I started to talk with him. Hey, Terrence.
Oh, yeah.
Terrence, guys. What? It's a friend of, it's a common friend that we worked with him at Rock Digital in 2019. And I said, hey, Terrence, how it's going, man? He said, no. I'm his brother. I was, what? I didn't know that Terrence has a twin. I was talking with him. And now you are telling me that you have a twin too, like a brother. So how often you see them? Like, you still have pretty good contact with your family?
Yeah, I talk to them. Like, with technology nowadays, it's like on Signal or WhatsApp or something like that. But it's, it's pretty expensive to fly a whole family across the country. So we don't go to Ontario too often. We're looking at going this year, but yeah. So it does make it tough, but like I said, like, I was ready to go. Like, I was actually ready to kind of kickstart my career, and going to Vancouver was like an adventure. So I packed my 2 suitcases and I shipped my computer, and I slept on my friend's couch. And he said I could stay on his couch until I found his place. And here's a good story for you.
He's a good friend, my friend.
He's a good friend, yeah. And after a couple weeks, like, the prices are pretty expensive. If you don't live in Vancouver, you should know that the prices. Oh yeah,
it's expensive today, so it's
very expensive.
More
yeah,
expensive.
Well, remember, I didn't have a job, right?
Oh
so yeah. So I hadn't landed a job. But anyway, to make a long story short, he opened a closet door, which was the dimensions of a twin size bed. A twin size is the smallest bed. And we just pushed a mattress in there, and you could close the door. And I stayed in there for like a year. It was awesome. I stayed in a hallway closet for a year, paid some cheap rent, hung out with my friends, and ended up getting a job. And the rest is history. I ended up getting a job. Oh yeah. And then I eventually moved out of that closet, but now I'm, now I'm married. I have a house, and
those experiences are really good for us to grow, and give value to our places. And, when we are young, it's awesome to have this experience. Like, people sometimes lose so much when they don't have the courage to do something like that. The way you did, you know what I mean? Like, but anyways, so after that, like, you find your first job, and what was the first place? Was on this studio that you worked for, Battlefield?
No, it was a small indie studio. There was a small indie studio that was trying to get off the ground called Lucid Games. I believe that was still based out in Ontario. But that never really got off the ground. That was a project that had failed. The first brick and mortar studio that I went to was a place called Kerberos Productions, and it was very small. I think there was like 15 people or something like that. They had made Sword of the Stars. It's like a 4X game. And we were working on a game.
It's uh still alive today? Is this the studio is still like doing some stuff, or they just shut down?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I didn't really stay in contact. Yeah,
Yeah, but
I left.
and for how long you stayed at, and then where you move after that?
So I left after 7 months. Our project got canceled, and we weren't really getting paid. And I just was like, you know what? This is time for me to go. So I left, and I was unemployed for a little while, and that's when I started doing some freelance work, and I started doing little toys for a board game. They were like die cast models that would
Mm-hmm.
be if you don't know what die cast is, die means two. There were two of these dies that would be pushed together. Oh wait, is it die cast? It means two that are just like the mold, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
that the way it was? Actually, I'm asking you, but I should be telling you. And I just had to make it
You
in a
can
certain
look it
way.
around. Yeah, but like
Yeah,
it was pretty much for board games, right? Like
yeah,
RPG games, stuff like this.
yeah. I can't remember the name, but it floated me. It actually just paid my mortgage, or sorry, not my mortgage yet. It was my rent at the time, and just
Really?
like and groceries and stuff like that. And
Uh-huh. And back then you
then
were already in your place, like renting a place, not on the with your friend on your friend's house,
I,
right?
yeah, I was renting my own place.
Okay.
Um, but that was tough times. Like going back to what you said, like, it's funny that you can do that kind of stuff. Like, living in a hallway closet, that's the dimensions of a twin size bed. It builds character. It definitely does. And
Yes.
yeah, and it's,
Do you
in
have
tough
room for
times
your like a PC at least out there, or no, like do you have
in the,
like a space for you to produce something back on this small place?
There just in the main area, there was just like a little desk that I had.
Mm.
And it was like a decent size apartment. And the funny thing is years later, I had ended up moving back into the apartment upstairs in that same place. So my
Mhm.
friend was downstairs and I was upstairs. And yeah, I had, yeah,
Yeah, man. Like
it was good.
for people that are watching, don't like don't let those opportunities like pass. Sometimes it can be challenging, but uh, I think I think for me the same experience you had was when I moved it to São Paulo, when like 2010. It was like my first time leaving my parents' house, and was like a huge uh, year, like in terms of growing, and learning a lot of stuff. It's a great experience, and yeah. So then after this studio, like not the studio, but like the freelance job that you were doing, that paying your rent, and how was after that? You learned a lot during this process. You could leverage something from that to games. How it was?
For that freelance stuff, no, it was more just like because I didn't have a lot of experience yet.
Mm.
It was hard for me to find some work post 2008 recession. It was a little
Hmm.
tough,
Oh yeah, 2008.
and that was still like though those effects had reverberated into the years later after 2008. So like 2012, 2013, those were tough. Those were tough years. Um, and then I think it was 2000, maybe it was mid 2013 that I went to EA and I worked on NHL.
NHL.
And yeah, that was NHL 2014, I believe. And then I worked on like a UFC title there as well. So if you're not familiar with EA makes a lot of sports simulators. Um, they're like they're less games and more like sports experiences. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
So
back then they were no. I will not say that they were just doing this, but it's still today. Like they do FIFA. Like in FIFA, it's I think one of the main source of like money is still right. Like for EA. So back
EA,
then it was
I think it's called.
2013. I think they were doing heavily lots of like gaming sports and stuff like this. Yeah, sports games.
Yeah.
still doing, but they do something different more.
No, I think it's, I'm pretty sure they're only doing the titles that are produced there, which is like Plants vs Zombies, and then all their sports titles.
Okay, yeah.
I don't think they're doing anything else. Maybe they are. I don't work there, so I actually don't know. But
They
I know
kind
that
of
there are some.
nowadays they're split it, right? Like they have like EA Sports, right? And they have EA Games, or they have. I don't know if this is exactly how they split up, but they have only one. When you are hired or someone from EA sports game or something like that, you know that you're gonna work on one of those franchise and one of those like esports games, I guess. If it's not.
Yeah, not 100% sure how that goes, but I will get back to leaving sports, and I'll get back to that. But after that, I had gone into a mobile studio, which was called Hothead, and mobile's really not for me. I really like to push myself, and mobile is the way you
Mobile
get
is
pushed
kind of
is like got to do it fast.
okay. And mobile, when you say, just to describe here, we're gonna have subtitles on this talk because I believe most of the people that follow me on YouTube is from Brazil, but
Okay.
just to give them an idea, mobile is like games. Do you have more examples? Like it's like the Blizzard games, RPG games, or how could you define this or give an
Oh,
example of a game that represent that?
um, like a mobile game. It was called Kill Shot, and it was just like a game on your phone. They were like phone games.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When you say
So
mobile,
on like your
mobile games.
your mobile device.
Okay.
And after that, I had went to a studio called Blackbird Interactive, which was so much fun. That I worked on.
Blackbird, I heard about.
Yeah, that is a fun studio. We did Homeworld, Deserts of Karak, which is such a fun game. Oh man, I was a technical artist there, so I was like doing some rigging, I was doing some scripting, and I was actually trying to find jobs that weren't just character art. The reason why I was looking for jobs that were different was because I eventually wanted to be an art director. And I wanted to be an art director that knew what I was asking rather than just, maybe I was just going to be an environment artist and then a senior environment artist and then a lead environment artist and then an art director, but I had no experience in characters or effects. So that first studio I worked at, I did some props and environments, and then they needed an effects artist, and I did some effects. So I learned a lot about effects, and I learned a lot about environments.
So you started pretty much as a generalist, right?
Yeah, but I did that on purpose because I wanted to make sure that, one day when I became an art director,
Yeah,
I would understand, even though the industry changes, I would understand the production cycle. And later in my career, after Blackbird, it was a great place, loved it. I went to Capcom, and once I became a character artist, I was just like, you know what? Like, games are getting really big, and now there are character art directors. Now there are environment art directors. There are effects art directors. And so like, rather than trying to be an art director of everything, I was like, okay, I'm going to specialize. If I want to ever become an art director, I would probably do best at this point in my career to be a character art director.
And what happens that you decide to do this? What make you decide to be okay? I want to do characters. Like, how was this transition? And there is a why, or what it was?
It was the most challenging. Don't get me wrong. All the other departments, like effects, is so much fun, and it's a challenge. Environments have a challenge, but doing anatomy is really hard. Doing realistic proportions in relationship to everything else when it moves, and there are a lot of like deformations that have to happen. And I actually just fell in love with characters, and I wanted to be a character artist for like a really long time. And when I had gotten the job, I had some at Capcom, I did have some years experience as a character artist, but I was just like, you know what? I'm going to stop hopping and being a generalist, and I'm going to be a little bit more of a, not so much a specialist, but just, you know, stay in the character lane. And that's what I chose. And
Awesome. Yeah.
yeah.
Awesome.
And after Capcom, I went to Rority, and that's where we met.
Oh yeah. So Capcom, for how long do you stay there?
I think it was 2 years.
And just for people know, like, unfortunately, you were there when they closed or something like that. How was that?
Oh no. No. So I left on a Friday, and they laid off like 50 people on the Monday, the next Monday.
And you didn't. So just for you guys to know, layoffs happens. I will not say all the time. We are going through it, and we'll be talking about that soon here today. But it just say that it happens, right? Like, it happens in 2013, right? You said? No, 2000,
2017 or 18. Yeah, maybe 18. I think it was. Yeah.
So, yeah. Now, I just want to say that it happens, right? Like, but you don't know. And of course, if you cannot say something about it, like, it's fine. But do you have an idea why Capcom closed in Vancouver?
Yeah, I know
Only
why.
if you can say.
I know why it closed, but I don't think.
No, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, I don't think I should say.
Okay. Move on. So after that, you started at Rock Digital. I remember I got there first day. I remember seeing that guy doing marvelous stuff. As fuck, this is really good. Like, I don't know how to do this, because I saw the craft. Like, I had the interview. They just show off what you guys were doing there. I said, I mean, back then, like, that thing was really neat, like another level. Like, it was a new generation of like characters, and I got impressed. I was like, holy shit, I need to work on that, especially because it was Avengers, right? So yeah, that where we met. And how was the experience? And of course, if you want to say something about it, but you think you grew, how was the growing side of things, like, for you, like, how much you think you evolved back then?
Yeah. So what I will say is, like, I probably had my first experience at Rorty Digital where I had some massive growth, and it was really uncomfortable. Like,
Yeah, it is, right? Like, every time you do learn a lot, it is like, fuck, I'm not delivering on time. What is going on, right? Like, it's a lot of pressure.
It was the fact that I had a son, and like, becoming a parent and still trying to grow your career is really difficult. And my son, I think when I started at Rorty Digital, was like 6 or 7 months, and he wasn't a great sleeper, and I wasn't a great sleeper. And the Avengers project was a difficult project. At least for me, it was really hard. The quality bar was really high, right? And
really high. And when I started at then, like, I've never seen something like that, and I had never built something like that too. So was really a challenge.
I think, nowadays would be able to kill it, but back then, that was several years ago now, that was tough. That was actually really hard. Yeah. But that was the first time that I think I really, like, turbocharged maybe my eye and my skills, and I got better, but I still knew I had a lot to improve. And while I was at Rorty Digital, my wife actually wanted to have another kid. And I was like, well, I can't, because I was living at the studio. I was at the studio a lot, and I was staying late, and it was quite far, actually, because we had bought a place out in Langley, which is like 45 minutes or an hour. Actually,
you were living already in Langley, right? Like,
yeah, that's right.
So just so you guys know, to the traffic, the time for this guy getting the job was something around like an hour.
It was an hour and a half actually to get downtown.
Oh my, it was an hour and a half? I thought it was
Yeah, it was
around like
so,
an hour or something.
well, we had one car and I had to take public transit.
Oh yeah.
So
Right.
it was a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
remember when back then I said, hey, I think I can't, I will not say the place, but I remember I talked to, hey man, a place that I know have a position open and I think you should apply. And I remember you said, man, like it will be 3 hours, 3 hours drive. I mean, to go and
Driving
to
every
get
day.
back. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is it's comprehensive, like 100%. 3 hours, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Well, yeah. So like my wife, she wanted to have another kid and I was game. But I didn't want to spend 3 hours of every day.
yeah.
Basically, so here's what really happened. I'll tell you what really happened. I was spending so much time at the studio that my son started to look at me a little weird. And he's like, what do you like? Who are you? And I was like,
Yeah, this
that's,
is not good. This is
yeah,
not good. Yeah.
yeah. And
Like,
so I had to stop. I had to basically find another job where I could actually raise a family. And just that project was just too intense. And I needed to take a step back and, focus on my family.
and it
And
is
that's totally
fine, right?
fine.
Like it is
Yeah.
fine. Like because
Yeah.
sometimes I see people, especially the junior ones, the people that are starting the industry that get like frustrated or upset, like upset with the situation. It's just sometimes the place is not just not for you. Like even
Yeah.
the project is awesome, but you really need to. I mean, I think if you are starting, if you're new, if you don't have family, mainly you are not a dad yet. I think it's worth it to because you're gonna learn a lot, right? But it's just
Yes.
like I understand because I have been places that I also saw that oh, okay, I think it's a good place, but it's been a lot. Like it's been very super stressful. You need to balance what your priorities, right? Like in your health too. But again, I think for people that are young, uh, they should start it. Imagine if you
Yeah.
had a chance at Rock Digital when you were starting, right? Like, you know what I mean? It was a different challenge, right? Like a
Yeah.
different moment in life. Anyways, but yeah, so we got on the point that we know each other, and then you left where you go, where
Yeah. I went
what's
back
the
to
next
EA
phase?
actually.
Okay.
I went back to Electronic Arts, EA Sports, and I
Oh,
worked on Need for Speed.
Need for Speed.
And that was only supposed to be a temporary thing for me because I wanted I'm not a fan of making sports titles, and that's fine. Like it's not for everybody, and it is a very fun environment there. Don't get me wrong. It's just
The
for
Need for
me that
Speed.
was supposed to be
Need for
like a
Speed
stop.
was considered like a sports game still.
I guess. Well, not really like a sports game, but it was just being developed at EA Sports.
Yeah, I remember that
Yeah,
back and like was so nice. I mean,
yeah.
the idea to work on Need for Speed. But yeah, how was the experience and for how long you stayed there and then what is the place that you also move on?
So Need for Speed Heat was great. Actually, that's where I met Charles, our mutual friend,
Okay,
Charles Lim.
Charles. Charles is a friend
Yeah,
of like a friend we have that it's working right now where at BioWare still.
at BioWare. Yeah,
BioWare.
and like I said, that was only going to EA Sports was only supposed to be a temporary thing for me.
Mhm.
So I started looking elsewhere because I felt like it was time for me to go. And like I said, EA Sports is like a fun place to work, but I wanted to be really challenged, right? Like I wanted
Mhm.
to grow my career, I wanted to grow my craft. And I was told that I was actually one of the very first people to go from EA Sports to BioWare because apparently BioWare didn't take a lot of people from EA Sports, and I
Mhm.
working on my craft at night. I would work on my portfolio at night, and it allowed me to get enough skill to be able to get into BioWare. And
Yeah.
I moved into BioWare, which was working on Dragon Age, And I was at
The
EA,
latest one, guys. The latest Dragon Age was
the
released.
Veilguard.
Was the one that my friend Jeff here worked on
Yeah.
with Charles. So you brought Charles to BioWare. How was that? You
Yeah.
said, hey,
Yeah. So
hey man, left. Just come to work with me, as you often have been asking me to, but unfortunately I was not able to move. But yeah,
yes, I did ask you first, actually.
yeah,
I did. I believe I asked you to come first and it didn't work. And I was actually just having a conversation with Charles and I was like, hey, like, so anyone listening to the podcast, I am a firm believer that if you make friends with people who, work hard and they help you grow and you help them grow, you need to maintain your network. And your network is really important because your network will help you get jobs when you don't have one. They will be there when you need a friend. They'll help you critique your art. There is a lot of benefits. Yeah.
Yeah. And
whereas some
especially in times
people
like this, right? Like I never saw
yeah,
the greatest example of like a great network nowadays. Like most of the works, the work I have been referring, or people that I usually refer to, the recruiters, like it's people that I know, right? Like
yeah,
it's networking.
it is. It's huge. And that's actually, I helped some people get into BioWare because I was like, BioWare is looking for some talented people. And I was like, I got you. I know some talented people. They produce results and like, trust me, like I work really hard. They work really hard. They're really cool and they're really chill. And so, I got some people into BioWare and I was at EA for like 2 years. I was at BioWare for about 2 years. And so that's like 4 years, but I wasn't getting any promotions or anything like that. I wasn't getting any vertical movement in my career.
Mm-hmm.
And an opportunity presented itself at Warner Brothers to become a principal artist, which I was very excited to be. Because
Warner Brothers, Montreal, right?
Montreal, yes. Yeah. And for anyone who doesn't know, like principal is a little bit different at every studio, but there are common things at a principal level, and that's training the team, it's building workflows, and it's a lot of research and development, and it's a lot of problem solving. And I actually really like solving problems.
Yeah, it's good for you to say that, because sometimes even myself, we have this thing of like, I want to grow, I want to become something, or I want to become an art director, or I want to become like a principal, as you're saying. But sometimes people don't realize that if you want to get those positions, you really need to be prepared for that, like, because the majority of like the studios will request this from you. It's not just about what is the name, like a naming thing, how we call it. It's not only the position name that you're gonna get and put on your LinkedIn, but it's actually the responsibility, right? Like you're gonna get paid well too, but if you're not on that level, you're gonna feel a lot, right? Like you're gonna feel the pressure. So it's good for you to say that. I just want to clarify this because I've seen so many people say, I wanna be a senior, but they're not on the level yet, and sometimes they're not humble enough to understand that. Hey, calm down.
Yes.
Yeah. How was for you the transition? How was? This is a great point. Like senior to principal. You said already great stuff, but let us know more. Like how was it challenging?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think what you were saying before was Peter's principle. And Peter's principle is when you are good and you keep getting promoted or getting positions to a level where you're not good anymore, and then you fail. And that's Peter's principle. And remember, I was telling you before, earlier in my career, I was a rigger and I had some tech art skills and effects and all that kind of stuff. And I just like to problem solve. Well, that actually primed me, that prepared me for a principal role, because there's a lot of problem solving involved in that. And I knew, as a character artist, you have to make art that is good for a rigger to take. And the rigger has to rig something that is good for an animator to take and animate. And the animator has to take something that is good for gameplay and looks really smooth and stuff like that. So it's called downstream departments, right? And so being aware of that and having rigging knowledge, I understand topology quite well. I know the needs that riggers, like what their wants are. Mm-hmm. And so when I transitioned to a principal position, it's definitely hard, but I was prepared because I had those previous skills, and I didn't just stay as a character artist. I had some previous skills, so I was kind of primed.
I just want to add one thing that just in case you miss is this. I remember clear that even that you were like changing jobs and like doing your professional thing. I've always seen you're posting your personal stuff, and you did those two characters in the reel. I remember those. The whole character, right? Like the Gambit
and Rogue, yes.
Yeah, and Rogue, and you did both with skin, hair, eyes. You did the whole pack, the whole thing. Nowadays, we know that some studios they are getting specialists, and which is good, but the pack of a principal was already being built from you. You know what I mean? Like you keep doing your stuff, and so it prepares you a lot. I believe so. Yeah, I just want to add this because I remember clearly that I was seeing you evolving, like doing your personal stuff, and I think it helps a lot too.
I agree. If you're listening to this podcast and maybe you look at my stuff or maybe you look at Abe's stuff and you think it looks good. Okay, thank you, by the way. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. But we have put a lot of time into our personal skills.
Yeah, look, my eyes. My eyes is really red. My eyes is like someone that it's getting the 40s and like it's dry here and I can't keep my eyes
staring at the screens all the time.
Open right now, paying attention in all the things that we are doing. Like, so it takes time.
It does take a lot of time, but eventually it is going to pay off. All that time and those skills that you're building with your eye, your artistic eye, you're seeing shapes, you're seeing things in the reference that maybe you didn't see a couple years prior. It does pay off. And like part of what Abe is saying, like I had made a couple characters, and that's kind of where my career started to take a change. I had built a couple characters. I designed them. So I didn't just make them from a concept that somebody else made. I designed them. I worked with a shader artist to make a shader that like I really needed to push the quality. And it was at that point that I think I started to get like a little bit more recognition, just where I was able to get to that principal level. And that's actually how I got the attention of a Blizzard recruiter. And so when I was at Warner Brothers, I was approached by a Blizzard recruiter and they had said like, hey, like we saw your stuff and I think it looks pretty good. Have you ever considered working at Blizzard? And
I said, no, never.
Yeah. And I was like, shoo fly. And actually what actually happened was I actually said, holy fuck. Like, cause I have always wanted to work on Diablo.
You got emails like that. It was like, what?
Yeah.
Really? That is happening? Yeah. It's a great feeling.
And I had always wanted to work on Diablo ever since I started in the video game industry. I love that game. And I didn't want to get my hopes up. I didn't want to get too excited just in case because, the talented team at on Diablo and at Blizzard, it's harder to get in. It's a harder studio to get in.
I heard.
And COVID was really bad, but COVID was really good for my career because it allowed me to get access to larger studios that wouldn't have cared about a character artist up here in Canada. And I probably would have still been, I don't want to say stuck, but maybe I would have been stuck at a studio here. Yeah. But I ended up getting the job at Blizzard, working on Diablo, and I had the best time of my life there. I absolutely loved being surrounded by other artists that worked on their portfolio, gave me critique to help me grow. And remember I said I had like a lot of growth at Rory Digital?
Uh-huh.
Man, it got turbocharged again on Diablo. I worked with Ben Ert. He is a phenomenal lead.
I know who it is. I know
Ben, yeah.
He does lots of creatures with tech on him, right? Like on top.
Yes, yeah. So he is doing two things with that. If you look at Ben Ert's art, he is working on his anatomy and his organic skills while also doing his hard surface sculpting or modeling and design. So he's not just doing like cloth, or he's not just doing hard surface or just anatomy. He's hitting more than one thing. So he is a beast. I have a lot of respect for him, and the feedback that he gave in reviews, not just for me, but for other people, I soaked it up, and I did quite well on Diablo. I felt like, yeah.
You can keep talking. Like I'm just showing the Ben's craft here. Like he's really, really great. Like he's the lead creator, artist, modeler, Blizzard.
Yeah.
For those,
and he deserves it. And the like,
his topology skills too. It's like it's
next level. Yeah. And he has a really good eye, and he's really chill. Like he's a really good guy, and that made it a whole lot easier to get feedback. When someone is just chill, they're not rude, they're not angry, they're not upset. They're just very even keel, very even chill. And unfortunately, when Microsoft bought Activision, they made Blizzard lay off a ton of people, and I was one of them. And that was really tough because, like I said, that was the most fun I had ever had in my career at that point, and working on my dream job.
It's kind of like a common sense, or not common sense, but obvious or something. We know that is not a nice thing that can happen in our lives, but how was for you, like going through this? Like how was for you? How actually overcome this?
Yeah,
because it was the best.
So we didn't talk. Yeah. So we didn't talk after I got laid off too much, did we? Just a little bit, right?
No, you told me. I remember back then. I just remember you said, and it was a fuck. I can't believe that it just happened with Jeff, because I knew that you were super excited about, right? Like and no, like, but I remember you. I just remember again the reaction from you, that you starting to get back to your stuff, and man, like I need to move, and you started to look for new places. And,
you know what, man? I'll say I was actually surprised that I got laid off. I know it's not it wasn't like I wasn't performing. It was just Microsoft saying, get rid of all your remote employees, reduce the number of people you have working on Diablo. And that was an ego thing. I was maybe starting to get a little full of myself. Like maybe I was getting a little cocky or something like that, because I was doing so well. And I thought like, hey, like it doesn't make sense to lay me off. Well, turns out it did make sense to lay me off. It made maybe like financial sense or something like that. But it humbled me, because I was thinking that like, if I just do a good job, I'm not going to lose my job. And if I do a really good job, then I definitely won't lose it, right? And I'll be able to not get laid off. Well, it turns out that's not the case. And I had a really hard time. I wasn't like super upset with myself, but I was just like, man, like even if you do, you work really hard and you work on your personal work and you are ahead of schedule at work, you can still get let go because it's not about you, it's about business. And that's where I think I learned a valuable lesson right then and there. It was like, I always knew this, but I didn't do it. You always have to look out for yourself, and you always have to make sure that that network is maintained, and you always have, do you know what a poker in the fire means?
Poker in a fire?
You always have to have a few pokers in the fire. You always have to have something cooking where,
Okay.
yeah, should something go wrong, you have a backup plan. And I didn't have a backup plan. And we all knew that like the industry was laying people off everywhere, but I didn't have a backup plan. And get this, I don't think I told you this. And my toilets broke in my house and they flooded and I didn't have money. So I ended up fixing my own floor on 2 different levels. It was insane. It was a very tough year.
I remember the floor. I remember you were doing your own stuff. Like I said, hey man, you're doing like some change in your place, stuff like that. He said, yeah, I'm doing, but you didn't tell me that. Like it's
I learned like I got way more comfortable doing stuff around my house, like renovations, because I just didn't have the money to do it. And that was a learning opportunity.
You didn't have the plan B, but again, if you feel comfortable to say something about it's okay. But it's a good thing to mention about that, because sometimes we keep excited about all the glamour and the great things that it's being a character artist and the artistic side and be recognized and all that. But talking about financial side, for people to understand that you also need to have your plan B, but also financial side. Like what is the tip you could have you could give to the everyone that is hearing here? Have you learned something from that, or you had already prepared yourself for some situations like this? Because it's important to mention something like that.
That's actually really good because a lot of people don't talk about it.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I have always done is I have always lived within my means. Like, do you know what that means? So when someone says that?
Probably, but you can explain, because Brazilian people don't know those expressions often.
Yeah, I'll explain it.
Yeah.
I don't drive an expensive car. I don't wear expensive clothes. I live as if I don't need a lot of stuff. And so I just live a regular life. And I have like a townhouse. I don't have a huge house. And I'm not trying to present myself like I make $1 million a year. And, I'll be honest, man, that financially saved me, because I had money saved in the bank. I always make sure I save for retirement, and I have like what's it called? Just like some cash. And it saved me. It allowed me to be able to float myself for a while without a job and be able to still pay.
With no job back then?
So I had a severance. I can't remember how long the severance was, but while the severance was coming in, I applied like the very first day that I got laid off. Like the day I got laid off, I went, holy shit. And I've always kept my resume up to date. I always keep my portfolio up to date. And I just started applying. Everywhere.
For you guys, and you guys don't know that, but I have been trying to pull this guy into the studio that was like humanoid, right? Like I remember, like I refer you there. You made some interviews, but unfortunately was not able to move on. But but hopefully let's just overcome this subject, because it's important to say, and I'm glad that you're open your heart and talk about that here, because now I can't see much people that got laid off doing interviews and explain. Maybe, of course, around the internet there, out there, we can find someone that talk about it. But yeah, it's just uh, it's tough, but I think you grow a lot. You grew a lot,
Mhm.
and right after that, it is the place that you are right now, right?
That's right. Yeah, I'm Bit Reactor.
Yeah.
And so I applied and I applied and I applied. And after a while, I started to get really scared because I wasn't getting any work and the severance was running out and I only have so much money, and I was pretty nervous and my wife was pretty nervous too. So it was actually like a scary time for us. And that's okay. And it's okay to be scared. But I have good friends, I have a good family, and I've been laid off before. So actually, I'll go back to the very beginning of my video game career. The reason I went to school for 3D animation and character design was because I got laid off as a graphic designer. And that was in the 2008 recession. So I had already lost my job before. And I was like, oh shit, like not again. You know what I mean? And actually, I had taken a layoff after my first job at Kerberos. So, it
Oh
was my
my.
third time, but I never had a family. I never had house payments. I never had all that stuff. I never had other people relying on me. And this was
Yeah.
the first time where someone was relying on other people were relying on me and I needed to produce. And so I am a good interviewer and I interviewed at a lot of different places and it didn't work out for all of them except one, which is Bit Reactor. And Bit Reactor
Reactor.
gave me an opportunity. And I showed Bit Reactor every single day that hiring me was a good choice. And I actually told the CEO, I was like, listen, man, if you hire me, I will make sure that my entire time here, I will prove to you that hiring me is a good decision. And I have done that every single day. I showed up. I always have a smile. I'm always positive. I'm always building bridges rather than burning them with people,
Trying to solve the problem, right? Creating solutions, right? It's really
creating
important to hear
solutions
that.
and working with people. And rather than, I'm not an asshole. I'm just a nice guy, and that goes a long way, especially when you have to solve problems with people because making a video game is all about solving problems. That's all it is. It's how are we
Yes.
going to make this character? How are we going to make this character rigged? How are we going to make this character animate? How are we going to put this character in this scene and light it? It's all solving problems. And if you can keep a cool, calm, level head, you will be a far better person to work with than, someone who's a jerk, you know?
Yeah. Awesome. Like I think through the whole Jeff story we just had right now, we were able to like talk about different subjects and things, really cool stuff. I think people that will be watching this will be learning a lot. But I have a few questions if we still have some time left. One of the questions, I don't want to go to the. I have some questions like what was your worst moment in your career? I'm not going through this because we went already. We talk about it and it's very clear the bad experience you had. But uh, still rely on this subject about like from senior to principal. Um, and I have a question that I think it's perfect for that is like how you handle like blocks, how you handle like when you're doing something, create something, you have no idea how you overcome this, how you create a solution, as you said, in a team, you find a problem, how is your process to solve this problem? Um, and it's like can be a problem with an artist, a problem with a tech, or even a problem with like creativity, or like you have a block, you don't know how to solve that. Do you have like a process to go through that you can kind of
Yeah.
give it to the people here?
Yeah, so I'll start with the creative block. They happen, and that is totally normal. And so for me, if I've had a creative block, which I was actually recently had one, I was making a creature and I wanted to hop into creatures a little bit more. And, you know, I was definitely struggling on designing this creature that I'm currently working on, and I was going to put it down. But instead, I said, I'm just going to focus on a small certain area. I'm just going to, gather the maybe I need more reference. Maybe I just need to do some loose Dynamesh sketches and just do something really loose and just work my brain. And it turns out that that little focus on a small area rather than the whole thing allowed me to work away at something that I felt like I was blocked on. Like I felt like these hands didn't work. Then I just did some hand sculpts. Maybe it's like a centaur that I'm working on. So it's got these hooves. And I just did some hooves. And I did like a bull. I did a camel. I did different types of animals, hooves and stuff like that. And that unblocked me. I started getting that feeling like, okay, here we go. Like I'm getting the art flow again. It's flowing through my veins again.
Nice.
Now, when it comes to work, when there's a problem to solve, I always make sure that I always find out who is going to be involved, who is the downstream department that is going to be affected and stakeholders, and I just get their needs. So I ask them, what do you need? What do you need? What do you need? What do you need? I collect what they need, and I have now enough knowledge that I can give people mostly what they want and come to a conclusion where, hey, like I can give you this 1, 2, 3, but I can't give you 4. 4 is just not going to work, but I can give you 1, 2, 3. Mm-hmm. And so I always try and, I don't go into any discussion. Okay. This is the truth.
Okay. We like the truth.
The truth. The truth is just because somebody has been doing something for a really long time doesn't mean it's the best way to do it. Yeah, sometimes there
tricky,
are,
man.
Yeah,
this is tricky, especially when we got in the new studio and the pipeline is there.
Yes.
And it's kind of challenged actually the way you're going to approach and say, hey, I think we have a better path. Yeah.
And it's tough. It's tough, but you just have to you have to prove it and do it. Yeah. So if you can prove,
this is really important because people like to talk a lot.
Oh man.
An argument, but it's just talking, guys. Sometimes for people, this is not only for people that do characters. It's for whatever art you do for the entertainment industry. Just do it and show them because it'll be easier for them to understand and accept, right? So yeah, I just want to add that.
Yeah, you are 100% right. You have to do it, and if, let's say, your idea is you want to make a better looking hair, maybe you have a better hair pipeline. Well, you have to make sure that you go to the riggers and you say, hey, I want to do it this way. Is this going to affect you? And you go to a shader artist or maybe someone who's if your game has character customization, you go to the people who it's going to affect and you explain to them like, hey, I'd like to try and do this. And blah, 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 blah. This is how I want to do it. And then once you present it to everybody, you present it like this. You say, hey, like I have this new way I want to make hair, and I already spoke to the riggers and they're fine with it. I already spoke to the character customization team. They're fine with it. And it's maybe it takes 5 days less. So it's going to help our production. And here's the kicker. Every time you talk about money, people's ears perk up. And they go, money, because that is time. And time is money. And time, if time is money, then time is your project. And if you can get more badass stuff in your project, you are going to win. You're going to get better. Like your project is going to win. And so you always have to come with a better solution.
Yeah, those words are really important. Like, especially when you are in a professional production, when you mention saving time, they will really pay attention to that. Like they
Yeah.
want to see it. Yeah, yeah, it's great. Like yeah, great. And going to the next one, I think I'm gonna put the two last questions here. How you're seeing the industry, man? Like, and how you see for the next 5 to 10 years? What do you expect? If you want to answer this for as the last question, I can go for the other one, uh, because yeah, this is kind of tricky. We can talk about AI too. Really hard subjects here, uh, and how we'll see the
Jeez.
industry.
Yeah. Wow. Uh, okay.
Because you went through some really challenging times,
Yeah.
2008, and now we are in 2025 in a recession again, in a crisis, and lots of
Yeah.
layoffs since from 2023, I guess it's happening. So, what do you, with your experience, what you can say about that?
Well, so business is business. They're going to keep doing what they're doing. So these big companies are they're going to shed some people, which means they're going to lay some people off. And we've seen that. And at some point, they're going to start hiring people again. And I honestly think that they're, at least at the big studios, I don't think the deep talent, the really deep talent is going to be going to the big major studios like they were before. I think what's going to happen, and don't quote me on this because I'm always wrong, okay? But I think what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of like indie studios that do really well. Baldur's Gate did amazing. Larian Studios is not a huge studio, but they smashed it with Baldur's Gate. I think what you're going to see, and actually Bellardo from that like, I can't remember which studio it was. It's a Canadian studio, but you're going to see like smaller studios doing great things because a lot of the talent that was let go at these big studios, they have 20 years experience. They know a lot. They've seen the industry grow and they're like, okay, I like I said, just because you've been doing something for a long time doesn't mean it's the best way to do it, but it does help you understand what sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. So there's a lot of people right now that are shifting. And I think that's going to shift games because, maybe we can now segue into AI, which would be, I guess, your next question. I have no idea what's going to happen in the future with that. I will say this.
But I don't know. Like I don't know. Maybe we're not gonna have our work like our jobs in 10 years. I have
Yeah.
no idea. But yeah. I just prefer to believe that we're still gonna be there.
Okay. I'll say this. Maybe I'll be wrong again.
Don't cry.
Oh yeah. Oh boo-hoo, yeah. I honestly think some studios are going to try and make games and leverage AI as much as possible. And what you're going to see is you're going to see a lot of shitty games that look the same and play the same. And gamers are going to be like, man, I'm so sick of this. And I think they're going to actually, I hope they're going to go back to stories that are told by humans, made by humans, because this is me. Like, I don't know about you, Abe, or anybody who's listening to this podcast, but I don't give a shit about a movie or a game that's made by a robot. I just don't care. I don't want to listen to music made by a robot. I want to listen to music made by a human because I'm like, when I experience these stories, I'm part of my brain is like, holy shit, like that was an amazing story. Somebody made that, or a team of people made that. But if you go to the movies and you're just like, wow, cool, that robot made a really cool movie, it just doesn't hit me the same way.
Different, like it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be our generation, right? This mindset that you have, that I have.
Exactly.
Maybe the next generation will not think like that, which is sucks. it's not good. But yeah,
Can I say something to that right there?
yeah, sure.
This is actually something that I do get a little bit worried about for my children. Is like, are my
I just
children going to
posted something
care?
on my Instagram today related to that.
Yeah. Like, are our kids going to care about things that are made by people? And they should. And I'll tell you why they should. Because it impacts them and their future. If all you care about is like the new thing, which I think maybe we need to have a completely different discussion about the negative impacts of social media and how we interact with each other.
Yeah.
That's another conversation. But
Yeah.
if all you care about is something new, then yeah, AI is going to be your friend because it's just going to slam out a whole bunch of stuff faster than you can even consume it. But it's just going to be watered down garbage stuff. And eventually someone is just going to get really sick of it.
Yeah,
But
I think use as a tool, it's great. It's it it can help a lot. It can helps a lot, like a industry like I think I lost him again. Come back, my friend. Okay, now you're back. So we were talking about AI and the impact and how we're gonna see this working. I mean, I've seen some stuff just before we move to the last question. And this I can say for sure. Um, I've seen some really scary stuff. At least for the base mesh, I think it's gonna have an impact soon in our process. Because I've seen like even from Tencent. Do you know Tencent? They just created one like it. There are a few more options, but from Tencent, you can already use an image and generate and create like a 3D piece of that. And sometimes if the reference is good, it's gonna be a really good base, man. And at least for stylized characters or even whatever model, 3D model, like what I saw was just scary, man. Like it's really powerful, but there is still a lot of need for character artists, for people is still like for a long time because games are just games. It's hard, as you said, it's a solving problem. Besides the artistic side, like of being a character artist, you really need to understand the technical side. So I just want to say that it's coming, but for people out there that think, okay, AI is gonna get my job, it's not gonna work like that. Like I think maybe I hope 30 years up front, maybe it's gonna have a very huge impact in our process. But anyways, um,
can I tell you what I would like to see?
what?
I want to see AI integrated into simulations. So I want AI to make better Marvelous Designer simulations.
Yeah.
I want AI to do better UV layout. I want that kind of stuff. I want the best topology made by Z Remesher.
Do you think that? Do you know what I believe? That for a good amount of time, one getting the point that the AI is gonna deliver what we expect being our high res, the high poly model. The most difficult part, I think, the AI will be able to do is the topology. So I don't know. I don't know what your opinion about that because it's so tricky to make the flow works as we want for production. And I think this area is gonna hold up lots of positions for people to work still. I don't know. This is me thinking. I don't know. Just what I
Yeah.
think. But anyways,
Yeah. So there's also a talk about if everything's done by AI, like who's going to have a salary that pays the bills, you know?
yeah. But this is a question for that the main guys that control the world, like
Yeah.
uh
So they make the billions and we make nothing because it's
yeah,
just
but like
AI.
they have been talking about like if something like that happens, like will be a real need for uh a worldwide salary wage that people needs to have. Otherwise, the economic like side of things will not be able to work because
Mhm.
who will be able to pay it, right? Like if there is no job, there is no consumers, like it is a real thing that they're talking about that. But anyways, like it's still getting the on the real life here. I will finish with this question. Like, I wish we had more time, and I'm gonna invite you to have this talk, another talk with you, man, because I think we have like lots of great subjects to talk about it. But
Yeah.
having the experience you had already for so many studios you have been going through and working and learning a lot, what do you, what is your opinion about what makes a great studio succeed? Like, because we are seeing a shift now, right now. Orient the like the Asian studios, like not Asian, sorry, but like the Japanese games, the Chinese games versus the North America games. Uh, in my perception, there are so many indie, like so many great indie games out there that the if you see the influencers playing the gamers, they're playing a lot of like indie games,
Mhm.
and it's there we can find the fun. I have my opinion, but I really want to hear from you. What do you think about like being a big studio that you can find lots of politics, like and lots of like really bullshit sometimes,
Mhm.
um, and lots of agendas that I'm not against the agendas, and I think it's important. But what is your opinion about like about that? And what makes a great studio do great games?
Yeah, well, agendas don't make great games, and um, people who aren't flexible are hard to work with, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm. Hmm.
people make games. So to kind of go back to your first question, like first part of your question, I think the video game industry is starting to turn into the music industry. The music industry is kind of stagnant as far as the mainstream music industry. There's nothing new that's coming out of mainstream because what's happening is all the new sounds, the new music is actually happening in the indie scene. The indie scene gets really popular for a certain sound,
Mm.
and then these big publishers are like, well, let's start hiring some people who sound like that because everyone likes it. And then there's like a new sound that is mainstream. And then there's more indie sound that comes in and is like, oh, okay, well, that music's pretty cool. And then the big publishers come in. And I think what's happening is, you know, these big publishers and these really big studios are having problems creating something new, maybe every single year or every couple of years. And so they are looking to the indie scene. So indie games, man, if you're an indie developer, you're not beholden to any agenda. Your only agenda is to make the coolest game you can make. And so,
Or financial decisions, right? Too, that drive the
yeah,
thing because of money only.
you are not beholden to shareholder prices. You just want to make a cool game, make a cool game. And there's a lot of really cool, small indie games that have like a really good game loop, relatively simple, but they're fun.
Yeah.
And so you can, if you're in like a AAA studio, you're kind of late to the game. You're late because you're waiting for the next big thing to come out, and then you're copying it just at a bigger scale with a bigger budget and more people. So it appears like that's what's happening. It appears like it's happening the same way that the music industry is going or has gone for a long time now. So who knows? Who knows really where it's all going to go? But I will say the second part of your question was like, like what makes a really good game? It's innovation, and it's honestly just really good people working together and communicating well. That's what it comes down to. Solving all those problems.
Yeah, I agree a lot. After my experience at Respawn, I started to see this because after I got on the game industry, I started to ask myself, what comes first, the narrative or the mechanics or the design, right? and just after years, I just saw, at least for me, and of course, there are a few studios in the world right now that really knows how to do a really balanced game, narrative, and mechanics and design.
Yeah.
But I would say that I will start it mainly with mechanics and design first, finding the fun, and
Yeah.
then put the narrative on top. But it is like it's just the way I see nowadays because oh my god, I think like the experience I had, like the studios I worked on, like it was just like, oh my god, like seems like there's so many noisy, so much noise actually around that it's just simple. Just let's just do this, and oh no, but we need to talk with someone else and someone else and someone else. It just create this big wall.
Hmm.
It's just tricky. But anyways, was great talk to you, man. We're gonna do a part two in some point, guys. I wanna bring Jeff uh back here for sure.
Oh, I'd love to do
And we're
that.
gonna talk about another stuff. I don't know if you know it, but I started like a new series of like videos on my channel with a couple of friends. They're mainly from Brazil right now, but the idea is that I want to bring people around around the entertainment industry overall, like not only on the 3D side, like on the game side, to have talks about like weekly about like what it's new stuff that it's happening. You know what I mean? Like first it's in Portuguese, but will be moments and episodes that I want to bring a guy like you just to like give your thoughts. We just sit and then we talk like we'll be five or six people talk about like, hey man, what stuff that it's going on in the industry. Just like it's like the trailer yesterday from Kojima, right? Like the Death
Death
Stranding one.
Stranding. Oh
Man,
yeah. Whew.
the fuck was that, man? Like it was like
Oof.
I was like I just was screaming my like at my chair here because like even that I'm not like a huge fan of the game, I just got on the game and I want to play it the first one.
Yeah.
And I'm not even like a huge fan of Metal Gear. Like I know that is the type of game I like it, but I never had a chance to play. When I just saw that guy doing that, it was what the fuck? He's like doing what he's doing,
Yeah.
and in the end, when that giant just put the ship on his head, it was like, what the fuck, man? Like I really got like a goosebump. Like I was like, no, like this is really different. Like it was great. Anyways. Yeah, we're gonna be talking about like exciting stuff, really sometimes bad stuff, but I just want to make a point here like that. Jeff will be there with us.
Oh, I'd love that. Yeah. Yeah, I'd love that. Thank you.
Okay, so once more, like thank you, man, to be here with me, talk with the people right now, mostly from Brazil, but like I believe I have like some people that talk in English too that will be listening to our podcast today. So yeah, thank you again.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you want to say the last words to the people that are watching? Some like tip or positive message or if a bad message, like a not need to be like a positive. But
Sure. Stay positive. Uh, you know, just be a good person. It goes a really long way.
yeah, it's a great tip. Anyways, yeah, I think it's that. Take care, be safe, guys, and we'll see you in the next one.